Hello, Matthew Appleby from Horticulture Week, and today I'm here at the National Plant Show with James Barnes, HTA Chairman. So hello there, James.
Matthew, good morning.
Now the big question that everyone's asking at this show is what's demand going to be like for 2023? What do you think?
Well, if I had a crystal ball on that, I probably wouldn't be standing here, but from a personal point of view, I think things are going to get a little bit tougher this autumn for the consumer. I don't think we felt the full impact of where energy costs are. I know that personally from a business point of view, and I think from a consumer point of view, things are going to get a bit tougher.
Okay, so what do you think that will mean for plant sales next year? Do you think people should be, being a bit conservative on what they're growing?
I think people will make their own decisions given what those dynamics are. Traditionally we say the horticultural industry is pretty robust. If people aren't going to go on holiday, they're not going to spend on that, they might spend on home. Those are the sort of the big cliches that I think have been repeated historically. But I think we still need to have that element of caution that clearly, although we created a huge number of new gardeners over that whole lockdown period, that sort of growth we saw then is not going to continue.
So are those 3 million new gardeners, out of them, how many are still around, do you think?
Well, I don't have any detailed stats on that, but my belief is that we have kept a lot of those within the industry. A lot of those are still enthusiastic and keen.
Okay.
And that's really helpful.
Now, on to other big issues. There's due to be a peat announcement in a few weeks. Do you think the industry's ready for that?
Yes, I think this whole debate has been going on within the industry for decades, and more recently it's had a lot of coverage. So I think the industry is reasonably positioned for that.
What are you lobbying on though? Are you lobbying to extend the dates from 24 for retail and 28 for growers, or are you expecting that will be a cut and dried case?
Well, clearly we still hold on to that hope. That's been a clear policy objective for us, was just to phase that in over a longer period of time. We weren't arguing against the point of principle here, it was simply a timing one. So that is still very much up there and out there. But at the same time, we need to be realistic, we need to plan for the future. And our biggest issue, therefore, is to ensure that if there is any legislation, that the law of unintended consequences is minimised.
One of those could be imported plants grown in peat, getting an unfair advantage over British plants. Talking to a lot of the exhibitors here, nearly everyone imports a bit, some of them import a lot, and there doesn't seem to be any real way of checking to see if a plant that's imported will be grown in peat, or even a definite aim from the government to stop imported plants being grown in peat coming in. They say they will, but how do you do that?
Well, I'll pick up on your first point. I think there is a realisation now within government that imports form a fundamental part of our own domestic production, our own domestic industry, and that we need to be very careful how we react to that. So I think there is an understanding there, and I think there is an understanding that they don't want to damage imports just on the back of peat. Yes, import substitution, great, but I think there is a realisation that that takes a lot of time and that can never be 100%. So I think there is an understanding there. We've just got to make sure that when we get into the detail here, when we get into definitions and how legislation actually works on the ground, that we don't inadvertently mess things up.
Now lastly, a big lobbying area has been imports, as we've talked about, and border control posts. Do you think the government is too draconian at the moment? Is it about right? Is it too lax? Where do you think we're at?
I think we're in a position now with this delay in border control posts where we have a real opportunity of working with Defra, with government, to come up with some very sensible, pragmatic adjustments to the current scheme that in my view actually strengthen biosecurity, but at the same time are far more efficacious for the industry as a whole. So I'm confident we can get there.
Any specifics you want to strengthen?
Yeah, there are a number of specifics there. I think it's having a more understandable matrix of plant hierarchy when it comes to what we can import, what's high risk country. At the moment there is almost in definition terms, there's a one thing that fits all, and I don't think that's appropriate. So I think if we can engineer change there, I think if we can engineer change on some of the processes involved in interceptions, and using all of our knowledge and what is currently out there in terms of plant health and plant healthy certification, then I think we can get to a place that makes the movement of these goods a lot easier for industry to handle and for Defra to handle, actually.
Now finally, do you think Defra trusts growers enough?
I think we've spent, I mean, certainly from an HTA point of view, I think we are still building our credibility with Defra, but I think we have an approach there that is data-led, research-based, fact-based, and I think so long as we can continue to do that and lead with that and get to the truth, then I think we continue to be a trusted and representative organisation for the industry.
Great, thanks James, thanks very much.